Hey guys, I'm here with the glorious return of the Batman animated series reviews with the much delayed The Cat in the Claw review of both parts 1 and 2, of course. So here we are, finally introduced to Catwoman within this series, and it's definitely very cool. Everything from the costume and voice acting really sells the character and why Batman has a connection with her. The opening scene in part 1 is very engaging, and we are immediately shown how capable Catwoman is as she and her cat Isis steal a pearl necklace. Not to knock the rest of the two episodes, but this scene is possibly the single best scene in both parts. Right from the get-go, we are introduced to the pure essence of the Catwoman character in all her incarnations across various mediums. Not only is she a master thief, but Catwoman lives for the thrill of the prize, and of course she gets really excited when she meets another costume person who can match her level of skill. When Batman confronts her, we get this really dramatic Batman shot with the series theme and everything, which makes Catwoman's reaction very fun. All she has to say is, "Magnificent." And this time I laughed out loud when Isis just looks at her like saying, "Wait, you're not scared?" The idea of the cat and mouse relationship Batman and Catwoman can have makes me think that the two of them can make great cannon fodder for animated shorts. In fact, we already did get one on the Mystery of the Batwoman DVD called Chase Me, and it was almost as much fun to watch as the opening scene in The Cat in the Claw. The simplicity of the idea of the chase is a particular reason why I think you can just watch this opening scene by itself without the rest of the episode. While Catwoman has now become enamored with Batman, he very much feels the same way. It's almost like if she weren't a criminal, he would be having the time of his life chasing her across the rooftops. Now, pretty much everything I've said now is common knowledge to most Batman fans, but it's interesting to see Batman act a little out of the norm, but not out of character. He doesn't treat her like a common criminal, but has more of a flirting thing going on, like when he says, "Drop in, anytime." By the way, Batman is smiling while holding Isis is an image that amuses me, because it's Batman breaking out of his facade of being the terror of the criminal underworld, but that does come back big time later on when he threatens a mob boss for information on Red Claw. Anyway, before moving on to, the rest of the episode, I do want to say that the animation in this particular scene stands out even within part 1, and is a true delight to watch. One major difference in this interpretation of Catwoman, which Greg Rucka talks about in an interview for the Gotham Knight DVD, is that she has the noble goal of preserving wildlife. Now that I think about it, this two-parter focuses heavily on this aspect of Catwoman in Batman the Animated Series, and her later appearances in this same series go more towards her motivation as a thief, like in the episodes Catwalk and The Cult of the Cat. Even though as a guest star Catwoman is featured heavily in these two episodes, barely any of the actual plots of this two-parter comes from her. The only reason she is involved in this whole terrorist plot engineered by Red Claw is because they are using land that she wanted preserved for mountain lions. Catwoman just stumbles into the villain plot, which is interesting to see her thrown in a situation where she's in over her head, but there's not much more to it here. That's kind of true for the whole story. This terrorist plot doesn't really have any thematic end, but it's more like fodder for action sequences, which isn't too bad because it's still interesting to watch and not difficult to get through. It's very entertaining. Any depth and true emotion in these episodes comes from the Batman-Catwoman relationship, which is really well handled, so it's fun to watch them thrown into a situation. A point I give to this episode is that at least the stakes feel elevated, especially when Commissioner Gordon seems really agitated that these terrorists are in Gotham. The audience feels that beating these guys will be a genuine challenge for Batman, though in the end it doesn't seem like one of Batman's most difficult missions, because Batman blows everything up in a fashion that would make Michael Bay proud. It may be a little late now, but I'll elaborate as to what Red Claw's actual plan is. She steals a plague from the army and plans to kill Batman and Catwoman with it so she can ransom the city for a fake. The plan's not illogical or anything, but it's not all that interesting. It feels like the terrorists are unraveling Selina Kyle's life at first because they find out who she is, but after they're defeated, I feel like Catwoman's life can return to normal if not for the ending, which is an absolutely great scene. In Catwoman's next appearance, Cat Scratch Fever, she does pretty much return to her life before she got in trouble with Red Claw. Like I said before, what adds substance to the Cat in the Claw is the relationship of Batman and Catwoman progressing. It's a bit surprising that these episodes skip all pretenses and just has Batman find out that Selina Kyle is Catwoman around the middle of part 2. Excuse me. I do like it, but I'm not sure about how he finds out. Alfred happens to find a cat hair on Bruce's suit, which he can tell that it's cat hair just by looking at it, and he says that he's never seen one quite that color. If that's supposed to be Isis, because Batman says that he's seen it before, she looks like a standard black cat, so I think Batman should have found out in a way that makes more sense. One of my favorite scenes pertaining to Batman's feelings is after he saves Selina's friend Maven. After he tells her to hide somewhere safe, Maven tells him that Selina loves him, and Batman has a look of sadness on his face before he leaves. I also want to briefly mention the scene where Bruce tells Selina to confide in him because he hasn't felt this way towards another person in a long time, which really tells the audience how special Selina is to Bruce. This comes back at the very end when Batman tells Catwoman he hasn't told the police about her yet because he didn't want her to be taken in like a common criminal. Yet Batman still arrests her, telling Selina that he cares more than she will ever know. The look of sadness when Batman realizes Selina loves her makes what he has to do at the end really hard for him, and since he found out Catwoman's identity, he knew that he would have to bring her to justice. No matter his feelings for her, Batman still realizes that she is a criminal, but how personally this affects Batman makes more humanity to the character without having out-of-character emotional outbursts. This relationship is what saves this episode from being mediocre. It's understated, but definitely there, unlike other stories where the audience has to grasp at straws to find an emotional connection between the two characters. What? Anyway, I've pretty much gone through the actual meat of the story already, so I guess all that's left to talk about is Red Claw. I've heard some people say that she's a poor villain, but I disagree. She's an okay villain, but her plan is not all that engaging, and she doesn't have any moments where she's not being intimidating to someone. She's a tough villain, but Red Claw didn't need to call attention to her gender when talking to Batman, but I do really like his response of, I'm an equal opportunity crime fighter. Red Claw works much better in her only other appearance very late in the series, The Lion and the Unicorn, because of her interaction with Alfred and how personal she makes it for Batman himself. If I remember correctly, she doesn't call attention to her gender in that episode, but we'll get there eventually. Before moving on to the animation, I do briefly want to talk about Bruce Wayne's role in the two episodes. A lot of humor comes from Bruce, like when he genuinely blushes when he tries to ask Selina out on a date, and when Selina threatens a frontman for Red Claw, and Bruce just says, "Have a nice day." I like these moments because I can buy that no one would suspect him of being Batman. The scene I mentioned earlier where Bruce tells Selina how much he cares about her outlines a third side of Bruce Wayne. Most people, including Kevin Conroy, say that Bruce Wayne is the mask and Batman is his true self. But that scene feels like the true Bruce Wayne when he's not putting on the playboy facade or the intimidating vigilante facade. I always appreciate to see this aspect of the character. In that scene, he acts like how he acts when he's with Alfred alone in the Batcave. Just talks to him. And Batman doesn't treat many other people that way. Alfred is a really special person to him as a friend and father figure, and he feels like he can act the way he acts around Alfred with Selina, so I really like that. The animation is different in the two parts, now that we're on to animation. Part 1 has much superior drawing, especially the scenes showcasing both Catwoman and Selina's beauty, and more fluid character movement than Part 2. Just comparing screenshots from the two parts shows how much the quality went down in the animation. That being said, there are other episodes of this series that have way worse animation than Part 2 of The Cat and the Claw, and it is rare in this show that animation be consistent in both parts of a two-parter. For instance, Robin's Reckoning has a phenomenal animation in Part 1, but it's noticeably worse in Part 2, and the reverse is true for Feet of Clay. What I will give Part 2 of The Cat and the Claw is that I really like the design of the Batglider Batman uses to get on the train. All series regulars bring their A-game to the voice acting, and Kevin Conroy gets to play a lot with Bruce Wayne and the Batman voices, as well as getting to portray his more sensitive emotions. Adrienne Barbeau is the big guest star here, as the voice of Catwoman, and she definitely knocks it out of the park. I said before that every character in the series is well cast, and Catwoman definitely was no exception. I really like what Adrienne Barbeau said in an interview about the character, how there's an "I'm sexier than you are" quality in her voice that totally fits the character. The musical theme for Catwoman fits very well. The one thing I noticed about the music here is that in part 2 I got a very Indiana Jones vibe in the action sequences that I never really got in other episodes. I guess it makes some sense since Batman fights people in more military locations in a 1940s looking world. Other than that, I don't have too much else to say about the music except that it lives up to the overall musical quality of the series. Overall, this could have been a mediocre two-parter, but Batman and Catwoman save it. This series has done better work and will do even better work in later episodes, but this version of Catwoman is well done and entertaining to watch, which makes this episode absolutely worth a view. Though Red Claw's whole terrorist plot isn't engaging enough, I give the Cat in the Claw a solid 4 out of 5. Well, now that I finished this, I should get more in the swing of things reviewing single episodes. I'm actually really looking forward to rewatching and reviewing the next episode, See No Evil. Hope you guys stay tuned for that review. So, until we meet again, enjoy.